something you didn't so just kind of something good to remember. All right. Okay, so we're going to be working with Google Classroom in this session. And so we're looking at how to use the HEB curriculum for home learning in Google Classroom. We're going to look at what's the best way to share, what should I be sharing, what's in curriculum for me to be sharing, how do I make templates for students to be able to work with, how do I, where do I find students' work, how do I manage students' work, creation on the students' end versus your end, some troubleshooting on accepting, joining classes, things like that, and rubric grading and using feedback and comments are going to be some of the things that we're going to cover. I'm in my Google Classroom right now, and I have quite a few of them. So I want you to see here, I haven't accepted this one because I wanted you to see that this is what students should get if you type their name in the People tab. If not, and you're giving them the enrollment tab, they come here and they join a class and type in the code here. But you can't do both. You have to choose one or the other. And it's per person. It doesn't mean that you have to do it for everyone. But if students are still struggling to get in, you can send them the join code, but make sure that they're not enrolled in your People tab. Okay, so that's going to be one of the big things that I've seen in managing people. So I'm going to use this one down here because it doesn't have any students in it, and we can play with it as much as we want to. Little things to remember, your stream is kind of just everything going on right now. It's a great place to put posting announcements, things like that. Classwork is going to be where you do the most of your work. People, again, your People tab is here. You can give them the code, which can be here. The code is also right here. And then you can also type in email addresses as well. An email address here, so if you had a teacher you wanted to come in and see what was going on, but you don't need them necessarily to contribute to what's going on, you can invite them here, or you can invite teachers here. Just know that you cannot invite them to do both. They have to see one or the other, okay? And so anyway, when you start typing, you can pull up a kid's name and you're gonna know that they're a student by the last bit of their domain here that says student.hebisd.edu. So that's important because they may or may not know their email and you may or may not know their email, but you should be able to come in and find your students that way, okay? Once you have one, I'm not gonna actually, well, I don't wanna actually invite them, but when you know that it's right, then you know that it's here, okay? Another thing to look at is once they've been invited, and let me just do one of my teammates so they can see. Once they've been invited, but they have not actually joined your class, they will be grayed out like this. And they're not going to be getting notifications, anything like that, because they haven't joined yet. And it's gonna look like that original screen here. It's gonna look like that they're waiting to accept it. So they've not actually seen anything, okay? Let's go back down to that. So until they've actually shown up and invited has gone away, and then you get more options to the side, that person has not actually accessed your class. So that's a good troubleshooting tip to go, have they even come in? That's where you kind of need to go to make that happen. You have a grading section here. We don't have anything just yet in there, and I can show you that in a live class. You have settings over here. You can change any of your information. Your class code is there again. And then this is where some of that information on your stream, if you want students to only be able to comment or only teachers to be able to post and comment, this is where that menu item can come in for you to make that choice. Classwork on the stream, you can actually hide notifications, show attachments and details, or show condensed notifications. You may want the stream to only be announcements, which means that you would hide any of the classwork. So that's an option for you if you would like to make your stream more streamlined. You can show deleted items. Again, only teachers are going to see deleted items. I've never seen why that would be useful, but maybe you can come up with more examples than me. Then guardian summaries can be turned on and off if you plan on inviting parents. If this is a confusion for parents to also be able to see their own version of what kids are doing versus helping kids with what's going on in their actual classroom, I would keep that off for now. But you can see what that example is. And basically all they're going to get is what student work is missing, coming up, and activity of the student, okay? They're only going to also see their student stuff. So that's, they don't get to see everything. Down below, you've got grades, grade categories, things like that. Because grading is pass-fail right now, you probably want to not put anything in here, I would say. So I would be very careful at what you're putting in there for grading right now. We don't want to confuse parents on what some of those different things. The other place that you can come and get more settings is to go all the way down and go to settings down here. This is going to give you a few more options. Email notifications being among them. What kind of notifications do you want in email? So you can get comments, comments that specifically mention you, private comments on work, classes that you're enrolled in. So if you're a teacher or a co-teacher in another class and maybe you don't want all of the invitations and everything and due dates and everything else, all of these can be turned on and off. The section up here is going to be for the full system. So it's going to affect every single class that you're in. The ones under here for class notifications, you get to choose by class. Okay, so I can toggle those back and forth and turn specific classes notifications off and on. It's going to be for the whole class though, and you're going to turn all email notifications off for that class in that case, okay? And again, you just toggle back and forth. I don't have that class anymore, okay? So again, that's in the settings that are in the bottom of this menu. Notice that I can also find archived classes here. That's a question I get quite a bit when I'm in classes. If I'm wanting to archive something, I can come in and hit archive. Okay? And I can do that on anything that I've actually joined. See, I don't have that option on this one. Okay? All right, go back in here. So like I said, most of your work is going to be done in the classwork tab. One of the things that I've gotten lots of questions on is setting up meets so that students can come in. So what I actually suggest doing is creating a new assignment or creating a new material. Either one works. And I'm going to edit it so you can see what that looks like. I just put my information there. I added in the link to my Google Meet. I use the same Google Meet over and over again. I leave the rest of this and then I save it as a draft. And then when I want to come in, I can come to create, go to reuse post. I can click my Meet Code class and reuse it. And I can publish that one without having to recreate it every single time. So I'm going to assign that one to students right now. Now you can see that one is gray and one is blue. This one is live. This one students won't see. It's still draft. So that being said, I can meet with my class and then I can come in and delete that assignment and delete that code from all the kids having access to it. So if you're worried about kids coming in and using that link over again, that's one way of managing it right now. Now, Google is working on that. Once the organizer who put the link out there is out of it, it will shut down and won't open back up again, but we have not received it yet. So it's in the works. They know that it's something that we're concerned about for students and safety, but just so you kind of know how that can work and manage it right now, that works. And you can do that for any class. So I don't have to be in this class to make that work. So I can come into, let's see, this one right here, then I can go to classwork. I can go to create, reuse post, and this time I want to select the class that I'm reusing that post from. Maybe. Google Classroom is as sleepy as I am this morning. Come on. All right, let me try that again. There we go. And I would go to the one that I just made it live in, and I can select it and reuse it in this one as well. Okay, so that way I'm not having to recreate the wheel every time I want to reuse something. All right. We're going to delete that from this class. That's just a show. All right. So then when I come back to my class I've been working in, and I want to create a new assignment. So assignment versus material, these are going to be pretty identical, except for assignment's going to have more options, okay? So assignment is going to let me add in different pieces, create on the fly while I'm creating my assignments, but I also can assign points or leave it ungraded, which is what I would suggest right now. I can give it due dates and times, and I can organize it by using my topics. So you can see I have quite a few topics over here, but I can create topics by the week. I can create them by the subject area. I have different ways of organizing the materials by using topics. That's how topics are used. And then I have the option to come in and put in a rubric as well. So if I'm wanting to put something from curriculum in here, and I'm just using some ones that I've saved in my home learning folder here. So this is where I'm going to be pulling it from. I've already made copies. You can see I've got a copy of this. I've got a copy of that. So that's what I'm using for my my assignment here. So I'm going to do the coloring to 100 page that I have. I'm going to add from Google Drive. And if you've added it to your drive, it's going to show up here. Okay, so I can then choose the assignment that I'm looking for. Notice that I have different options here based on the different, and so we're going to look at that. I'm using a Google Doc right now. I'm going to add that. When I add it, this is probably the most important feature of an assignment versus the other options within Google Classroom. If I do this drop down, students can either view the file, they can edit the file, or they can make a copy for each student. If you're using this as a template for students to turn in work to you, this is the option you want to be selecting. Otherwise, you've got a mess on your hands for organization, sharing, getting the work back, and things like that. Notice that now that I have a title in there and I have something in there, I can add a rubric at any time. And I can either create a rubric, reuse a rubric, or import one from Sheets. So if you have something already in place, you can use it. I have one that's an example that I'm going to use, hopefully. It's not what I'm looking for. Where is it? Rubric sample. All right, so then I can come in and notice that it's given me points, it's given me a description, it gave me criteria, and I can start looking at that. To add in criteria, I can use the Add Criteria button. I do not have to use scoring. I can either do it ascending or descending, depending on where I want it to go on the page. And once it's saved, then that rubric will be available, and parents and teachers, parents, co-teachers, and students can see the rubric, and that will help when you're giving feedback. You do not have to use a rubric right now. You are not creating a rubric on your own, but if the curriculum does get a rubric and send it out to you, that's where that rubric can go, okay, when it gets here. If you're trying to find a good criteria to give grades, just make sure that it is not a true grade, because we don't want to confuse parents between the grading system of the pass and fail, because a 70 might not represent everything the student has done. A 70 on a concept and a participation and some of those different things, there's different criteria to that. So just kind of be mindful that we're still kind of determining that criteria a little bit. But then when you're ready, you can assign it. You can keep it in draft, assign, or schedule it for later. That's all going to be in that little drop down. Once we're there, then you can see that it's alive. I can come in and edit. I can copy that link. I can reuse this in my other classes like we talked about. I can see who's turned it in, who I've assigned it to. Again, I don't have kids in this classroom, but you would see the number of kids in your classroom that had accepted your class here. I would be able to see anyone who turned it in here. I can again go back to that rubric. I can view the assignment. I can see my instructions here. I can see student work here. All right, I'm going to see if I've got one of mine that you can see with work done. Pull it over. All right, this one should be a good example. All right, so this was PD session I did. So this is teachers. I'm not sharing anything too crazy. All right, so in my class work area here, you can see that I've got quite a bit of work that they did during this area. So again, when I come in and so here, this one, you can see that I assigned it, 20 are graded, 20 actually turned it in because otherwise they wouldn't have grades. But if I come in and view that, you can see everyone who turned in and the work that they did, right? Okay, then over here, I can come in and you can see that I've given feedback on some of them. I've given grades on some of them, some I haven't. So this is kind of how you can do some of these things. So I could click on assigned or graded, and I can give points. I can say, okay, you know what? I want to look at this one right here. I can pull it up. And over here to the side, I can give grades. And what I'm telling you to do is to probably have this ungraded, so that would be grayed out. But I can put in a comment right here, and that's where that feedback can go for parents. And so let me see if I have that up somewhere I can grab too. We've all been trying to find good ways to say things online. So as I come up with them, I've been trying to say here. Okay, so feedback's what's important. So I'm going to put this in the chat so you can see what I'm talking about here. So what I have been saying here is potentially you have received a pass or a fail for this assignment. Here's feedback to support why this grade or why it was graded that way. And then also include opportunities how to bring a fail to passing if that's appropriate. Okay, so obviously you're not copying and pasting this, but this gives you kind of a plan for how you can put that feedback together. So that might be something to consider, okay, is just saying, because we're just giving pass and fail, but kids and parents also need to know why. And then if they did get that fail, put in here, how do they raise that up to a passing? How do they either get in contact with you? What enrichment activities can they do to help them maybe understand that concept a little better? Or what could they do on that assignment to resubmit? Okay. And then once that's posted, it goes straight to the kid and they can see it. Okay. And I can go quickly by each kid by going through and just clicking through. And I would be able to put those comments in and look at their work directly. Okay. I've returned these already. They've already been graded. So that's why they look kind of funny, but that's kind of how that works there. Another way to look at work is, again, in your classwork tab, you have a Google Calendar and a class drive folder. Every time you create an assignment, it's going to create a new folder for you in here. So you can see there's my assignment. These are all the things that were shared to the students in my class, but these are the actual assignments of work that they are getting and are returning to me. So then when I get in here, I work and I see the real time as they're working on it, progress that they're making on the work that they're creating, okay? I think quizzes don't do anything there, and those are both quizzes. All right, so then here's the scavenger hunt. And so this is, again, all of their work that they've turned into that assignment. Okay, so you get to see that all in one fell swoop, which is kind of nice as well. All right, so one of the things too that were kind of questions that had come up is that as a student, it's nice to know how it looks for when they are needing to create something and give it back to you. So if you're not creating a specific template for them and you're making it open-ended, or maybe they're submitting a picture back of work that they've completed, something like that. I need to find one that I am, this one, a student in. So then when I go to classwork, see, this is the student view. So I can view my work, I can see my folder, I can see my classmates, but these are the different example things that I've got in here. So I can view my assignment, and then here I can actually add or create. So when I add or create, I can either create a new doc, slide, sheet, or drawing, and I can also add something from my Google Drive, a link to something, or a file. So if I'm adding a picture of the work that I've done, or I created something I want to show you, then I can click on that doc right within the example with all of it here. I click that to open it. I can come in and do the work that I need to. But instead of having to know how to share and make sure that my teacher has it, when I'm finished, I just click the Turn In button, which is the same as the Turn In button here. Okay, so you're not having to necessarily always create everything for every student. So if you've got something that you want them to be creative in pulling back to you, or have an option to create something, that's where that can kind of come in and be a good place. So especially for kiddos who may not have a lot of access to technology and they're doing the work on paper and they want to share that work back with you, instead of using a template online, they can add or create and turn in the work through pictures, or through work that they've completed in another way. So that's another way of getting that work back from kiddos. All right, and I'm not sure that everybody knew that that was there. Okay. Making sure I'm covering all the things that I say I'm going to cover. Okay, so putting in work from the curriculum. In my first session, I talked about going to curriculum and getting that, and I pulled some down already. So I have a folder that I've already kind of been playing with right here of different things. I just want you to kind of know that a PDF is basically going to open the same way PDFs open for you in Google now. Okay, so if I look for some PDFs in here and I open up this PDF, I'm going to get the black box. That doesn't allow me to do anything really other than add it to my drive and download it. So that may not be the best option going forward. Now, a cool thing would be to take a picture of it and throw it in a Google slide as a background. That's going to be one of the options that we look at in the session for creating Google Slides as interactives. So do not despair if a lot of your curriculum is in PDF. I'm just going to show you a different way of doing PDFs, okay? The other option is to use your Word or slides that have already been created, okay? So you've got those options. And when you're putting those in here, you have, again, the assignment or material that you can use, depends on if you're needing a template or not. And you're always going to either use Google Drive, or if you have something from your computer, a file, you can create straight from scratch as well. I would imagine that would take more time than just creating it and putting it in, but you do have that option as well. And then this one goes out to YouTube as it is here. If you put an image, they're going to get an image. If they get a PDF, it's going to look like that. If you want them to work on it, it really needs to be a Google type document. And so sometimes we get confused. So this one is a good example of, see how the W is here versus the lines? That means this is a Word document. And so when that opens, it gives them that black bar. And sometimes they can open with Google Docs and it will start. And then sometimes when this happens, so they added this new feature, it's still a docx, which means it's a Microsoft Word format, but I can come in and do some editing. Sometimes this doesn't work. It's still a new process. Sometimes it works famously and it's totally fine. But if you're having kids who are struggling, if you go to File and Save as Google Docs, that might be a better option. If it's already looking okay as a Google Doc anyway, in the editable mode for Word, then it's going to work fine as a Google Doc as well. So I would just save it as the Google Doc and then use that as the thing that you put in your classroom. So I hope that helps with whether or not it is a Google Doc or not, because even though it has the symbol over here, it does not mean that it's been converted into the Google environment or not. And so that can be difficult for students and parents to navigate. And so that helps a lot when you're trying to get in there and do that. All right. So slides are going to probably be the best bet for most of your learning opportunities. If you're going to create something, and this is something I covered a little bit earlier, but I do want to go over again as an expectation, is that now that teachers are having digital classrooms, it's becoming more and more of an opportunity for teachers to take the autonomy to teach the way that they need to be teaching for their classroom, their students. Okay, so just giving them an opportunity to really navigate what you're doing in a format that makes sense to them. And you're going to know them much better than a curriculum coordinator is. So they are providing curriculum, which is the what, and you are providing the how. How is it coming across to students and parents? So the big thing right now, and the reason I had this class or schedule put on today, is because we've got to have something for Sunday. What are we putting up Sunday? How do we navigate everything that's in here? And I did go over that in the first session, but just know that you need something up there that helps them understand how to plan for the week. It could be, here's the schedule of when I'm posting. It could be, here's materials you're going to need for the week. Here's a checklist of the must-haves. If you only have this amount of time this week, this is what you need to focus on. It could be the letters that are addressed to parents in the at-home learning in HEB curriculum. And so they can see an overview of what's going to come. There's different ways to make that manageable, but the main thing is to kind of have an idea going forward what you're going to put on a Sunday. It does not need to be everything. Okay, do not post everything for parents on the first day. This is very overwhelming for them, and they don't understand how to look at curriculum like we do. And so we can navigate things much quicker and easier than they can. So giving them something to kind of go off of that has a little personality or classroom culture in there would definitely be helpful for a Sunday of how to get prepared for the week. And every group of parents kind of has their own idea of what that is. So if you need help with that, just reach out for sure. We've got some ideas from what parents have given us on Home Education Bridge to help how they like things done. But I would just start with something this week that you think is manageable and grow from there. Okay, this is all a growing opportunity, and come back to it. I would also suggest, again, looking at that first video on organization right now. That is going to be a huge time sink. If you if your Google Drive looks like mine right now and you have stuff everywhere, it's going to be very difficult for home learning because you don't want to spend all of your time doing this when you could be making valuable video lessons or reaching out to kids or doing a Google Meet with your parents or doing a Google Meet and reading a book to your kids. There's so many valuable opportunities. I want you to be spending your time on that, not worrying about where did I put this thing that I created. So organization is what I talked about in that first one. I would suggest going back and making sure you kind of get in there. And making sure that you make those copies. Again, that's in that first one as well. The other things that you have in here, you have this quiz assignment, and you have questions. Questions are really just pose a question, get an answer. But quiz, you can do so much, and that's going to be the last session of the day is actually how to. But I want you to see the difference between a quiz from Google Classroom, which is just a blank quiz. There's nothing in it. You have to go in and create it on the fly, right? It automatically assumes that you want grading and things like that in there, okay? So all of that's in here. It will import the grades from it into your Google Classroom. You can schedule them. All that's kind of in that option. But you can also do that in an assignment by adding it from your Google Drive and choosing ones you've already created. You do not have to recreate each time to be able to use the quizzes, and I get that question a lot. So I can come in and do forms, and then you can see any of the different forms that you are putting in there, okay? All right. Make sure that I covered everything on the agenda, and then we can ask some questions. All right, good. If you would like to jump on either the chat or if you want to ask questions, this would be a good time to ask some different questions. It does not have to be on the agenda. It could just be a burning question. But I want to give everybody an opportunity to kind of jump in and say, I've been working on this, because I know I covered very specific things right now, but I wanted to make sure that these were the things that, hey, I've got it all set up. I'm not sure what to do next. So that's kind of where I started.
Casey, how do we create an assignment that's open-ended? When we create, do we just do material and then
Yes.
we assign it and then they can add anything they want?
Yeah.
Right? Like any link from their Google Drive?
You can do that on assignment or material.
Okay.
So they're going to get that option that I was showing on that other classroom. Let me go back to that real quick. It's Jeff's classroom here. Anytime I open anything, it gives me that add or create before the up above the turn in button. That's where those open-endeds can come in.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
And then also with adding the Google Forms, I found out the hard way that if I email a Google form through my Google email, like for example at home, I used at the bottom of the Google or the email where you can attach a Google form. Well, that actually gave everybody the editable version of the Google form. So you actually have to add the link in there when you're doing an email, but you're telling me through Google Classroom, you can add it from your Google Drive and it'll be the actual form that they fill out.
Yes, yes. So, say I want my assignment and add from Google Drive. Everything's going so slowly today. Only because everybody's looking at it. Let's see. It's only giving me. There's one in here. There we go. All right. So it'll come in just like that.
Okay.
And when they click on it, it's obviously mine, so that's what comes up. But they would get just their version to fill it out.
So they would not get the editable version. Okay.
Yep, I know. There's so many different things that can happen.
And would you go, and I'm sorry, would you go over one more time if we have posted an assignment and we want to archive it, for example, if we already did a Google Meet and we want to reuse that.
Okay, sure. All right, so what I actually do is I keep one that is my sample or demo, and I leave that on draft.
Okay.
And so when that's in here, instead of hitting assign, I go down to save draft.
That makes sense.
Yep, so I save it as a draft, and then I come in, do create, and I want to reuse, and then I come in and reuse my drafted post. That way I'm not having to recreate it each time, and that's what I assign or schedule.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. I didn't get nearly as many questions this time. I don't know if that means that it was good or bad.
It was great, very thorough. You did a good job.
Good, good.
You're doing it better and better.
I know. Every little time you just kind of keep adding on the next set of skills, and you don't have to be an expert. Like, I don't know how many times I can say to people, like, give yourself some grace right now. I mean, that's my little thing right here. We are all learning, and everything is new. It's so new for us. And so just kind of making sure that we're all kind of in that same boat of extending grace to ourselves, extending grace to others as well. I am going to go ahead and take the recording off since we're kind of done with this